February 14th to many is a day to celebrate love. To many others, it's a day to be reminded of just how depressingly single you are. But for me, I choose to celebrate a far less corporate and artificial holiday. For me, February 14th is Reiko Nagase's birthday! Yes, the girl from Ridge Racer! Cliche though it may be to put your sexy mascot character's birthday on Valentine's Day, I'm rolling with it. Not like I've got anything better to do that day anyway. So this year, let's take a deep dive into her lengthy history, which I assure you is much more robust and absurd than you think. So let's get started. Race queens, grid girls, trophy girls. They go by many names and are a staple of racing, even if they have been recently kicked out of Formula 1. Yes, they seem to serve no purpose other than to look pretty and pose for the camera, but gosh darn it, they're a mainstay, and if pretty ladies want to get paid to wear tight clothes and wave at people, then someone is gonna pay them to do just that. For some reason, cars just don't go as fast if hot girls don't pose next to them. As such, the race queen is also a staple of the racing game genre. The earliest I've been able to find being from Taito's 1987 arcade game Continental Circus, but rest assured, they show up in many a racing game. Why, even Crash Team Racing has a few, who are finally playable after all these years in nitro-fueled, and oh egad, I couldn't be happier. This is literally a dream come true, thank you Beanox. But of all the race queens in gaming, there's one who stood out, one who returned time and again, one who actually, had a name, and that name was Reiko Nagase. Now, the first Ridge Racer, released in 1993, had a nameless race queen. Some wonder if this might be Reiko, as she would be 18 in 1993, and this is plausible, but doubtful. Ridge Racer would receive a slightly enhanced follow-up in the form of Ridge Racer 2 a few months later. But it was the next game, the true sequel, where our story begins. 1995's Rave Racer famously opened with an animation of a sexy polygonal woman clad in leather, turning around to reveal the back of her jacket as the title screen. And I remember my young 10-year-old self staring transfixed at the screen thinking, how pathetic that they need a hot girl to sell their game. Wait, why can't I look away? Now, technically, this is not Reiko. This is the nameless Rave Racer girl, and she— Okay, wait, yo, hold up there, Joe. I was literally in the middle of editing this when I stumbled upon this kinda huge breakthrough. Okay, so throughout this entire video, I'm working under the knowledge that the Rave Racer girl has no name, but Reiko is based on her. But this random DeviantArt page says something interesting. This artwork here, I think, is from a telephone card from around the time of Rave Racer's release. I swear I saw a photo of it, but I cannot find it again. Regardless, the art was commissioned by Ageless magazine, one of the big Japanese gaming magazines of the time, making this artwork semi-official. The way this person is writing here makes it sound as though this is in fact their artwork, and that, while the Rave Racer girl had no name, they called her Rave Reiko internally before she officially became Reiko Nagase. I don't have time to ask questions, it's literally Sunday morning, 1:57 a.m., but this is a very interesting bit of info that adds a bit of canonicity to the idea that the Rave Racer girl is in fact Reiko Nagase. As a side note, if my Gaijin ass is not mistaken, Reiko basically means first child, so it's a sensible placeholder name in a way. Anyway, back to the video, carry on past Gel. Technically, this is not Reiko. This is the nameless Rave Racer girl, and she is, in fact, one of 8. If Rave Racer is put in Link Play mode, then each player gets their own, slightly different race queen to go with their car. Alas, Link capabilities have not yet been emulated, so the best I can do is a collection of various off-screen recordings from around the internet. Still, this is quite impressive. Despite their low poly count nature, good art design and clean modeling and excellent animation still make these ladies quite attractive, despite that low poly count. A direct port of Rave Racer to home consoles technically never happened, but the next Ridge Racer game, Rage Racer in 1996, is widely regarded as Rave Racer's enhanced home port. And what an enhancement it was, with a full fancy campaign mode and everything, but more importantly, this is where Reiko Nagase receives her name and full profile. This is where Reiko Nagase becomes a character. And as this is usually seen as a home port of Rave Racer, and the similarities to the Rave Racer girl are obvious, well, yeah. Then again, that short hairstyle was quite common among CG ladies. See, the mid-90s to early 2000s was a time period where Japan was obsessing over the concept of the virtual idol. Advancements in 3D technology allowed for decently attractive digital ladies to be generated, and everyone seemed to be scrambling to craft their own. The first big breakout being Reiko Nagase, created in 1996, the same year as Rage Racer, but alas, not a whole lot was ever done with her despite receiving international attention, as the idol company that crafted her, HoriPro, said they would treat the virtual character like real flesh and blood talent, which got everyone's imagination racing. 1999's Yuki Terai, however, would receive significantly more exposure and use, and even show up in the early PS2 photography game Primal Image. Reiko Nagase was never marketed as a virtual idol, but it is likely that HoriPro's decision to give a full profile to their virtual girl may have inspired the Rave Racer girl to digivolve into Reiko Nagase. Yet despite not pushing her the same as Kyoko Date or Yuki Terai, Reiko Nagase is far more well-known than both. And both usually get their images confused with Reiko, since they all have a very similar look. The early virtual idol look, I guess. The reason for this is simple. Shockingly decent human faces could be rendered, but not hair. To this day, we still struggle with hair, though massive advancements have been made. See, hair can bend at a near infinite number of points, meaning 3D modeled hair would need an absurd number of bones, polygons, and computing power to flow properly. Oh, there's tons of cheats you could use to make long-haired characters in video games, but in terms of realistic rendering, the longer the hair, the more obviously fake it's gonna look. So everyone just decided to create a super short hairstyle that wouldn't flow too much, making it super plausible and easy. And then everyone looked the same, and Reiko Nagase outperformed them all because Namco actually used her. And now that I think of it, if the Rave Racer girl is Reiko, then she just beat Kyoko Date to the punch anyway. Ha! Can we call Reiko the first true virtual idol? Because I want to call her that because I'm a huge unrepentant fanboy. Either way, Reiko Nagase not only appears in the flashy CG opening of Rave Racer, but also in its races as, well, the race queen, showing up with a sign at the beginning of every race. Reiko wears a different outfit for each class, and not gonna lie, this is the most time I ever put into a Ridge Racer game because gosh darn it, I had to see all the outfits. I love that the starting outfit is this casual torn jeans and camo top look, which is so far from what we expect out of Reiko these days, as well as a leather outfit, which, you know, is reminiscent of Rave Racer. It was also a brilliant move to represent Reiko with a pre-rendered sprite textured onto some flat polygons tweened for movements. It looks pretty good and convincing unless you're playing on an overly high-res emulator. So, Reiko got a lot more exposure in Rage Racer, more than you'd think, but of course it would be 2 years later that she truly shined in 1998 with Ridge Racer Type 4, aka R4. Heavily marketed and widely praised, R4 is still regarded as one of the PS1's finest. Heck, they even included in the ill-fated PS1 classic that you forgot all about until just now. I remember people's minds being absolutely blown by the light trails from the taillights of your cars, and with not just solid gameplay and fantastic graphics, but 4 different full story modes with characters and everything. Yeah, R4 is the most well-known and widely beloved game in the Ridge Racer series, and standing at the forefront was Reiko Nagase. Absolutely plastered all over the marketing, box art, t-shirts, and more. If you knew R4, then you knew Reiko Nagase, and as soon as you turned the game on, you were greeted with pure art. A gorgeous opening movie of Miss Nagase waking up and walking to work while a street race is going on. The strap on her heel breaks and she catches a ride with one of the race cars, all set to a wonderfully sexy tune. Folks, this was animated in 1998. It still looks gorgeous today. You would think this would have been surpassed by now, that the uncanny valley would have kicked in, that Reiko would be looking a little off by now. But nope, this whole video is still gorgeous. Heck, someone even tried to remake it with modern tech and it still fell short. A noble effort, no offense, but it's just a testament to the sheer artistry on display in this video. However, despite being all over the marketing, Reiko was less utilized in-game. Each team has their own race queen, all sadly unnamed, with Reiko only showing up in the later races in full PS1 polygonal form. For better or for worse, I'd say her implementation in Rage Racer was better, but she actually does play a small role in the story. If you do well enough with the Pack Racing team, then you'll receive a fax from a fan saying they're rooting for you and for your team, but they have to remain unbiased due to their job, only revealing at the end of the letter that the fan is in fact Reiko Nagase. So now that we've reached the height of Reiko's fame, let's stop for a minute and actually examine her profile, shall we? Who is Reiko Nagase? So, Reiko Nagase was born in Tokyo, Japan on February 14th, 1975. Yes, 1975. This puts her at age 20 in Rave Racer, 21 in Rage Racer, and as R4 is explicitly set in 1999, 24 here, and 46 today. In a world of barely legal fighting schoolgirls, it's quite refreshing to see a mature woman take center stage, and Reiko definitely looks like a woman in R4. Of course, that year is a hilarious misstep. Everyone was doing it at the time, though. Remember that Chun-Li was born in 1968, for example. This is because when video games started having profiles, developers just picked the age they wanted and subtracted that from the current year instead of listing a proper age. It makes sense, that's how normal profiles are done, so no one expected these characters to become as timeless and legendary as they would become. Now we do it the other way around because video game characters don't need to age and games can take place at any time period. The only reason Reiko sticks out is because she actually did age. She is clearly older and more mature in R4 than she was in Rage Racer, which was nice. But now things just get weird, and hilarious as you'll see later in the video. Moving on, she is 165 centimeters tall, so about 5 foot 4 inches, 5 foot 6 inches, which seems really absurd, but Japanese video game character heights are traditionally eyebrow-raising. And she weighs about 106 pounds. Her feet are 23 centimeters long, putting her at a woman's size 6.5 in the US, size 37 in Europe. How the crap do European shoe sizes work? Anyway, Reiko enjoys diving, swimming, especially scuba diving and aquatic sports, as well as making soufflés, and her favorite video games are Pac-Man, Smash Court Tennis, and We Love Katamari. She can also play the guitar. Favorite foods are minestrone, pears, and potato chips. And she dreams of one day being an astronaut and going to the moon. And on her off days, she enjoys scuba diving, taking her pet dog Ricky for a walk, and going on drives with her little sister. Yes, Reiko has a little sister, albeit only by about a month. Her name is Kei Nagase, but you might know her better by her call sign, Edge. Yes, Edge from the Ace Combat series is Reiko's little sister. People will most strongly remember her from her starring role in Ace Combat 5, appearing in a great many CG cutscenes, but she can be traced all the way back to at least Ace Combat 2, wherein it is explicitly stated that she's Reiko's sister and was born March 31st. One day after me. Technically speaking, however, as the Ace Combat series plot is all over the place, there are multiple Kei Nagases. The one in Ace Combat 2, Assault Horizon, and 4 are explicitly the same person as Reiko's little sister, while the ones in 5 and 7 may or may not be due to alternate universe shenanigans, and then there's the one from the novel and the Ridgeback Squadron member, and, well, the long and short of it is that there is a Kei Nagase in almost every Ace Combat. There's even a Kei Nagase in Ace Combat 3, which is the earliest known point in the Namco space timeline, or the Mr. Driller expanded universe, as I like to call it, and yes, that's an official thing which we do not have time to get into. Just know that the Namco deep lore is bottomless. What's more, logos and companies from Ace Combat 3 do appear in multiple Ridge Racer games, making me wonder if Ridge Racer exists in the Ace Combat Strange Reel universe or not, despite Reiko being born in Tokyo, Japan. It is also worth mentioning that Ace Combat 2 came out in 1997, releasing directly between Rage Racer and R4. Regardless, Kei Nagase has basically become the mascot of the Ace Combat series, to the point where the Assault Horizon update blog was called Project Nagase. The same year as R4, Reiko would receive her first playable appearance in Namco's Smash Court Tennis 2, released in Europe as Anna Kournikovas' Smash Court Tennis, and unreleased in the US. This game would feature a plethora of Namco characters as hidden unlockables, and Reiko was one of them, alongside Richard Miller and Shirudo Garo of all things, and yet no Wild Dog. Following this, on 1999, she would appear playable again, though few outside Japan would know it. You see, Namco has a long-running series of baseball games, mostly under the Family Stadium and World Stadium brand, and these games all tend to feature a Namco All-Stars team. In Super World Stadium 99, Reiko Nagase joins the Namco Gals team alongside Valkyrie and Wonder Momo and the like. Low poly though she may be, it is unquestionably our girl, and she would remain in the series for the next 3 games, Super World Stadium 2000 and 2001. Alas, neither of them are emulated, but the arcade footage I've shown shows they all use the same graphics and models as 99. 1999 would also mark another time Reiko took center stage as one of many tech demos for the upcoming PlayStation 2 system. A brief demo of little more than a smile and a wink, and yet it would be etched into history. And yet, ironically, the PS2 is the console she would basically not appear on. Though Konami would attempt to fill the void with a Reiko of their own, we'll get to that later. During all of this, Namco put out an online Reiko Nagase calendar and a number of gorgeous and artistic renders of her. These are beautiful, and again, these are from 1999/2000, and somehow they still look believable and gorgeous, well beyond the touch of the Uncanny Valley. In 2000, Nintendo would be approved by Namco to develop a Ridge Racer of their own for N64, and it would prominently feature Reiko Nagase's R4 renders with the Ridge Racer 64 logo photoshopped in. Interestingly, this came out on Reiko's birthday, February 14th, only 1 month before the PS2 launch and Ridge Racer 5. Unfortunately, now we have to talk about a little thorn in my side. A dumb bit of gossip that I swear I cannot escape. One that shows up whenever the discussion of Reiko Nagase goes too deep. In their review of Ridge Racer 64, Incite Gaming Magazine posted this little blurb declaring that Reiko was, quote, part man. According to this, Reiko's creator couldn't find a female face in time, so he shaved, plucked his eyebrows, and scanned in his own face. Now, I've spent many a year hanging out on the internet's #1 poison fan forum posing as a fighting game message board higher voltage, so that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is how disrespectful this is to the person who created her, as well as the fact that immediately after this, Namco would make multiple attempts to get rid of Reiko. At the time, I legitimately thought this dumb article may have done her in. I mean, we're talking 4 different replacements across 3 games and skipping an entire console. Reiko all but vanished for 5 years. The first was Ridge Racer 5's Ai Fukami, who in retrospect I almost feel bad for. She was poorly received and never appeared again after her 1 game. The following year, in 2001, Namco introduced Hitomi Yoshino as their sports image girl, appearing in Smash Court Tennis, MotoGP 3, and some Japanese-only baseball game. Certainly, she was more used than Ai Fukami ever was. What's more, though I cannot find the video, screenshots exist of a trailer from E3 2002 where Hitomi Yoshino rides in a Dodge Viper and runs over the Ridge Racer logo, promising a new racing project from Namco. This project was likely R Racing Evolution, a Ridge Racer spin-off featuring real cars instead of Ridge Racer's fictional ones, as well as a delightfully speed racery story mode. However, Hitomi Yoshino would not actually appear in this game, she herself being replaced by Reina Hayami, an ambulance driver turned race car driver. Following this was the Nintendo-developed Ridge Racer DS, technically a port of Ridge Racer 64, but it went out of its way to replace Reiko with Gina, the rival from R Racing Evolution, even though some silhouettes still belong to Reiko. That's 4 replacements across 3 games. 6 years since R4, and almost skipping the entire PS2. This entire time, that dumb bit of Reiko gossip just kept popping up. No one actually read the magazine, just that one scan, which has been plaguing the internet for decades now. But I admit that this was the wild perception of a young tween-age gel, the kind who would make an internet shrine to Reiko on tripod that why is this still up? No. More than likely, Namco was obsessing over their stupid decision to say that Reiko was born in 1975. She was old now, so they needed a younger replacement, but damn it, you just can't replace a classic. And indeed, Reiko would make her glorious return mere days after Ridge Racer DS in Ridge Racers on PSP. Yeah, but we're getting ahead of ourselves! We've got a dumbass article to debunk. So first of all, Reiko's creator would be Kei Yoshimizu, who had found his own 3D animation studio called Studio Keika, though I believe it was called Studio Kaka for a while. This guy darn well nearly wrote the book on rendering attractive women in 3D. Well, he did the cover art for the book anyway. The point is, Kei Yoshimizu is a name. So saying he just scanned his head in seems kinda disrespectful to his skills and talent, to say nothing of how expensive a 3D face scanning unit would be in 1998. While I can see some facial similarities, it is far more likely that Mr. Yoshimizu used a mirror to get facial proportions and expressions right, something pretty much all animators do, so unless you want to start insisting that all the Disney princesses are part man, then you can shut the fuck up. What's more, exactly which model did he scan his face for anyway? Reiko has had 2 or 3 models by this point, and if the Rave Racer girl is Reiko, then rest assured there ain't no face scanning involved with that model. But wait, what the fuck even is Incite Gaming Magazine? I've never heard of it. Has anyone ever actually bothered to look this sucker up? Well, I finally did, and no wonder I never heard of it. Incite Gaming is a well-hated trash rag that lasted all of 9 issues, every single one of them with some C-list celebrity on the cover. The particular issue with the Ridge Racer 64 review having this cover featuring the actress who played a side character in Pamela Anderson's VIP, telling us 10 reasons why we need Perfect Dark because, oh yes, I'm sure she has so much insight into that game. Incite Gaming wasn't competing with GameFan or GamePro. It was trying to be a cut-rate Maxim. You know, the magazine that years later would inform us that poker is like Halo with chips. No one gets to live down a quote that stupid. This whole trash heap is wall-to-wall dumb celebrity interviews, jokes that have fuck all to do with gaming, and wrestlers holding PS1s because that's game journalism, folks! He writes the sheer number of Lara Croft pictures in this damn magazine borders on embarrassing. People, you ever feel nostalgic for the 90s? Go look this shitfest up on archive.org and you can kiss that nostalgia goodbye. Fuck me, what even is this? This is the magazine that dumbass scan came from? Cripes, they even edited the scan to make it less embarrassing looking. That one dumb scan is the only lasting legacy of this shit dumpster. This is like literally the least reputable source for gaming news and information. Fuck you, Incite Gaming Magazine. But let's look closer. While Reiko was absent from the Ridge Racer series, she did still make some more guest appearances. As mentioned earlier, she was still in Super World Stadium 2000 and 2001. There was also the Game Boy game Tales of Phantasia Narikiri Dungeon, a turn-based sequel to the first Tales game, focusing on some kind of cosplay-based class system, like Final Fantasy X-2 but sillier and with way more costumes, and sure enough, there's a Reiko Nagase costume in there. Sadly absent from the recent otherwise superior remake. What's more, 2001 would bring us the WonderSwan color golfing game Wonder Classic, which features Reiko Nagase as a playable character in glorious 2D. Heck, she's even the very first character you can attempt to unlock, which is convenient for this video because I suck at golf games. Like, more than usual. In 2002, America would step in and try to remedy the lack of Reiko with Pac-Man Fever, a Western-developed Mario Party clone for GameCube and PS2. She's super deformed and kinda funky looking in it, and the game itself isn't very good, but gosh darn it, it had Reiko in it, so that means it's awesome just for that. And yeah, that's why I said she almost skipped the PS2. Do we really count this? However, this is where the drought actually begins. Yes, Japan had a few releases in 2000 and 2001, but there were no Japanese releases with Reiko in 2002, only that one US release, and further, none in 2003. Yes, that's only 1 year with truly no Reiko on the horizon at all, but that's only under a microscope. We're still talking about cameos in Japanese-only spin-off games here, and while the main series she represents scrambles to find replacements and went through 4 of them, and every time the fans just kinda wondered where Reiko went. No, seriously, every replacement was poorly received because the fans just saw them as Reiko knockoffs. You can't push a character that hard and then just bury them, especially after her face in that tech demo sold the PS2. I was promised sexy CG quality ladies, where are they? Heck, I think even Konami got fed up with this. See, Konami asked Polygon Magic to create the best looking female character model the PS2 could render. Use all the polygons, or half of them anyway. The result was a Reiko of their own, Reiko Hinamoto. Now, with the sexy model in hand, they had to figure out what to do with her, and the result was the all-girl wrestling game Rumble Roses. That, by the way, is why there's no 4-player or tag matches and why the camera is so zoomed in. The system literally can't render more than 2 characters. I think when a 3rd character is on screen, they not only remove a ton of background details, but actually use a lower poly count version of the model. But wait, isn't calling Miss Hinamoto a knockoff of Reiko Nagase a bit of a stretch? Well, it would be if it weren't for the fact that Reiko Hinamoto's day job is as a race queen. She even wears her proper race queen attire as her superstar form in Rumble Roses XX. A race queen named Reiko. Suspicious. Folks, when your competitors start making knockoffs of the character you're trying to bury, maybe it's time to put down the shovel. So, in 2004, Reiko Nagase at long last returned to launch the PSP with Ridge Racers, while Namco finally wised up and deleted the birth year from all future profiles because wow, does she look young, like stupid young. She first appeared in a cel-shaded CG trailer for the game and looked more like she did in R4 age-wise, but the final release seems to have really aged her down. If they had kept that 1975 birth year, then Reiko would be 29 years old here, which is somewhat plausible if it weren't for the fact that she looks younger than she did in R4 by a significant margin. Again, video game character doesn't really matter, but gosh darn it, I wish Namco would just own this. Go all in, come up with some weird way Reiko can control her age or something. Maybe she's actually a magical girl. Military experiment, like they're trying to keep her sister young so she's at top physical performance while retaining all of her life skills from years of piloting, and Reiko just yoinked some of that. Maybe she got a hookup with the Mishima Zaibatsu and got some of that good stuff Heihachi was on, or, you know, she played baseball with Valkyrie and Ishtar, so they could have tossed her some magic red and blue candies from heaven that age and de-age you 10 years. What? I always thought Reiko and Melmo had a similar style to them. Same energy, as they say. Come on, Fushigi, not Reiko, let's push that! Or alternately, these are alternate universe Reiko Nagases, considering there are multiple alternate universe K Nagases. Maybe these are the sisters of all the different Ks? Actually, that sounds like the most plausible explanation. But I still like Fushigi not Reiko though, which, for the record, if she had popped the candy, would put her at a highly believable 19 and 1 year younger than she was in Rage Racer. Also, looking at this intro, they show Reiko's feet a lot. Almost more than her face. And this is the only time I've ever seen shoe size listed on a profile. And her R4 intro has her walking barefoot after her shoes broke. And the ending to Ridge Racers has her ballet dancing with a lot of close-ups of her feet. I'm starting to think there's a foot fetishist involved in here somewhere. Following this was the Xbox 360's launch in late 2005, and along with that came Ridge Racer 6 and yet another wondrous appearance of Miss Nagase, this time looking just a little older and in a pretty great outfit. She also gives you messages throughout the game to encourage you. Then in 2006, we saw her return once again in Ridge Racers 2, again on PSP, with an opening very similar to the last one, but different as well. A few months later, Ridge Racer 7 would launch the PlayStation 3, with Reiko dominating the intro movie, title screen, and ending, once again going for a young and cute look despite theoretically being 31 by now. She's also the lead spokesperson of the UFRA racing organization. So, we just went from a Reiko drought to a Reiko flood, with 4 new Ridge Racers with Reiko released over the span of 3 years. You need to talk about making up for lost time. Things would slow a little now. Reiko would get a poster in that Japanese-only PS3 cat game, there's a Reiko ski design in the Wii Ski series, and her outfit would appear as an unlockable in Wii Ski's phenomenal sister series, Wii Cheer, which, yes, is a fantastic music game, especially the much more forgiving second one. Then, in 2008, the Ridge Racer Patchy slot machine was released, and thankfully ported to PS2. Okay, so this is just weird. See, patchy slots are literally just slot machines that dispense pachinko balls instead of coins to skirt Japan's gambling laws, because apparently Japan is built around dumb loopholes in its own laws that render those same laws pointless. So yes, it's a Ridge Racer slot machine, an overly fancy one with tons of really nice Reiko scenes in it. Like, after you win a race, you get this cute dance sequence, and there's a photo shoot where you take pictures every time you stop one of the reels. There's even a remake of a bit of the R4 opening, but with this younger looking Reiko. And it has a fail state. Sorry, kid, you're too young now at age 33. Really, though, she does look younger than she did in Ridge Racer 7. Like, you sure you're still legal? You didn't pop another of Melmo's pills and make yourself 13 now, did you? Really, though, this is just wild. You can bring up graphs and charts of payout over time and examine the patterns of the reel and all sorts of stuff. Like, why? I have no clue. Strategy? Are we building slot machine tech? Are we seriously labbing a slot machine? They also released this 1 month after the machine hit pachinko parlors. But what really matters is I can collect the different Reiko cutscenes. And yes, of course I own a physical copy of this on PS2. This is a PS2 game in 2008, 2 years after the PS3 launch. Not gonna give me HD cutscenes, huh? Not gonna throw me that bone? Okay, fine. Moving on. All would be quiet on the Reiko front for another 2 years. Hold up there, past gel. I just saw Ridge Racer Accelerated in my old Reiko videos folder while editing. Apparently this came out in 2009 and is basically a mobile port of Ridge Racers 2 with microtransactions. Delightful. And by delightful, I mean literally no one remembers this exists. Carry on. years before yet another console launch, meaning time for more Ridge Racing. In 2011, the 3DS launched with Ridge Racer 3D, and oh baby was I buying this. Seeing Reiko in 3D was fantastic, and hey, nice leather outfit. Is this a callback to Rave Racer? I think so. Wonderful opening movie, and apparently I hear Reiko is actually the end boss of this game, finally answering the question of if she races or not. Apparently, yes! Also, if we're keeping track, she'd be 36 here, or 26 if she ate one candy, 16 if two. I'm still pushing the Fushigi not Reiko theory, damn it! This same year also saw the release of Ridge Racer on Vita, and oof. So, this was a mistake. No intro movie, only 5 cars and 3 tracks, the rest is DLC, despite the game being full price. Ridge Racer Vita was a rushed joke openly mocked across the internet. Reiko herself does appear in some cool backgrounds for the menus, but that's about it. No, I guess she was too busy playing baseball, as Reiko would return to the Namco All-Stars team in Pro Baseball Famista 2011 for the 3DS. And oh man, was I hyped to see this game. The art of all these Namco characters in baseball uniforms was amazing. And hey, Reiko seems to have gotten her years back. She looks a lot like she does in R4, at least in this artwork. Sadly, it turns out that in-game everyone's just a generic baseball person model, making this 2011 game very disappointing compared to its 1999 incarnation. The following year, in 2012, came Ridge Racer Unbounded, a Western-developed game that clearly wanted to use Reiko, but couldn't. They wanted too much plot and backstory and rebooty nonsense with a heroine that runs a street racing gang and whatever, the game tanked really bad. The next year would see the release of the also Western-developed Ridge Racer Slipstream on mobile, which proudly features the 3DS version of Reiko on its title screen. It is now defunct. Meanwhile, Namco themselves would release Drift Spirits for mobile that same year. It's still running, and has some kind of unlockable 3DS Reiko gacha power-up thingy. I don't know, mobile games. Speaking of which, 2014 would bring us Famista Dream Match for iOS and Android, which would once again feature Reiko as a character, but this time alongside her sister Kei. At long last, both of the Nagase sisters are in a game together. And it just uses generic baseball people, so it doesn't even matter. Good art, though. Reiko would appear on the cover of the Ridge Racer 20th Anniversary album that same year with a gorgeous insert featuring her dressed as an angel and a devil, which is really cute. I think those are the Ridge Racer Vita backgrounds. The following year, she appeared as a summon in Taiko no Tatsujin V version on Vita, and in 2016 as the race manager in the Western-developed mobile game Ridge Racer Draw and Drift, which is now defunct. All of these still using her 3DS appearance. And that was the last known sighting of Reiko Nagase, 2016. Since then, I haven't seen anything about her myself, but at the same time, I haven't seen a new Ridge Racer in a while. They're usually console launch titles, and yet we've now launched 2 PlayStations without a Ridge Racer in sight. A whole generation without a Ridge Racer. Then again, I understand. There are so many much higher quality racers out there in the simulation genre, and Ridge Racer was never quite arcadey enough to stand out in the realm of arcade racers. Though we're sorely lacking in those, too. So wait, let's take a look at these stats here. That's 8 major Ridge Racer appearances, counting Rave Racer, 8 playable spin-off appearances for 16 major games featuring Reiko. I'd add Patchy Slot, as she's in a lot of that, for 17. Count the lesser ones like Ridge Racer 64, we're looking at 19 appearances, count the mobiles for 21, and 7 small references in games for 28 games with Reiko somewhere in them. That's likely a lot more than you expected. If there's one company we can count on to bring back its old characters, it's Namco. Heck, they're practically pioneers in the field, what with them making the Galaxian flagship a power-up in the original Pac-Man. Don't even get me started on the madness of the Namco space timeline. I mean, Kei Nagase was last seen in Ace Combat 7 in 2019. Reiko will return one day, I'm sure of it. Especially with all the hype that once surrounded her. She's widely regarded as one of the video game babes, with game journalists of the time arguing over how much hotter she is than Lara Croft. In the modern day, it's easy to look down our noses at the sexualized model who only serve to stand there and look pretty. As long as you ignore all the time she's been a spokesperson for a racing association, or an end boss, or played sports, or, you know, maybe there's more to her than you'd think. And you know, I think that's Reiko's real lasting legacy. Before Reiko Nagase, race queens were just a sexy background object in video games. Whee, look at the Bikini Babe sprite. But Reiko, she elevated that. Not only did she introduce most of us to the concept of race queens, becoming synonymous with the idea to most of the West, but she made them into something more. She had a name, a history. She showed up time and again, a familiar face we were all glad to see. She was an actual character, and in that intro to Ridge Racer R4, where we saw her waking up and going to work, she reminded us that those sexy models were people. Oh, yes, it was done in a sexy, dreamlike way, what with the soft filters, smooth music, and Reiko waking up with her perfect lipstick on and all that, but the point does still stand. Now, whenever I see a race queen or a booth babe, I wonder, who are you? What's your story? Reiko Nagase is a legend of gaming, and I await her return to the stage of history. Until then, happy 46th birthday, Reiko Nagase! You don't look a day over whatever random age they're gonna model you at next. No, seriously, Namco, roll with it. Fushigi not Reiko, I'm telling you, it's brilliant! Bah! It's the alternate universes, isn't it? I'm betting that's what's canon. Lamers. Anyway, this is Gel, and you've been Game Babbled. See ya!